So we are here at our third session in this public debate. Let us hear you tell us what your recommendations are and what are your claims. What are you demanding at the international community? Are you demanding from your governments, from the international community? Miditan, you don't know her, but you have to keep in mind her name. She is 23 years old. She is in charge. She is representing the Philippine youth in climate change debate. She was in Glasgow at the COP26. She went and demanded heads of state to stop investing in fossil investment, gas, coal and oil. These are the main energies responsible for climate change. She is inviting you to join the World Youth Movement
Everyone, I'm
against
Mitzi Janelle Katnay, climate justice activist based in Metro Manila, Philippines, and I am here today in COP26 with other amazing Global South and youth climate activists in solidarity and really making sure that climate justice is being talked about and the youth are being heard here at COP26. We all know that the Sahel region is already heavily impacted by climate change. Temperatures are rising and natural disasters are more frequent and severe, and the children living in the Sahel are among the people most affected by the climate crisis worldwide, yet we're not hearing their voices. World leaders must act now to sharply reduce their emissions and fulfill their promises to support adaptation to climate change in Sahelian countries especially. And really, I am here in solidarity and in support with the Sahelian youth who will be debating the climate issues on World Children's Day on the 20th of November. And I support you, and I'm looking forward to hearing the recommendations you will issue, because really this climate crisis that we're facing, it is a global issue, and so we need to connect and have that international solidarity across youth activists around the world, supporting especially youth activists in Sahel, in one of the most affected regions, and really making sure that these are the voices that are listened to and prioritized. So good luck, everyone.
Et merci infiniment à Mitsitan.
Thank you, Mitsitan, who sent us this video message. She's the initiator with Greta Thunberg of a petition that collected 1.5 million signatures. We can just send our project, try it on the ground and see what the results would be. Before giving you back the floor, let us get back to Mr. Aruna Jeju, the climate expert we heard earlier on, who is a climate expert. He wanted to give you some advice on what you as activists may be doing or could be doing. It is important to encourage these young people who show that they are very much aware of what the issue is. And it is heartwarming to see that they are trying to find solutions. And it is our responsibility to try and engage them so that we get on the path of sustainable development, because it is their future which is at stake. Second, it is important that they form a community, because in isolation it would be difficult for them to have individual actions with an impact. They should find fora and gatherings where they would share their experience, and they should form such platforms to talk in between themselves of what is going on in their regions, countries. To us, the third thing which is of importance is to call on their political leaders so that they fulfill their commitments. In each country, they have a plan for greenhouse gas reduction, and they should get back to their national contribution levels that got revised in Glasgow. They should go by the commitment to that contribution level. So I am inviting young people to call upon the international community for them to fulfill their commitments to guarantee and save their future. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Aruna Jeju, for having stayed with us and who accepted to have this debate with us. Prerna, are you with us? Prerna Banati, are you with us? I can see you. Good morning, Prerna. We thank you. You are the regional advisor for Western and Central Africa on youth and adolescent development. More than ever, UNICEF puts children at the heart of any decision. Can you hear me, Prerna? Did you hear me, Prerna? Yes, she's nodding, so she did hear us. So, over to you, Prerna. Over to you, Prerna, if you heard us. Yes, we do hear you, Prerna. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be discussing with you today. There seems to be a...
You can go in English, Prerna.
Okay, I'm here to share with you some thoughts on how do we make participation a reality for young people. I'm delighted to hear the engagement, the energy today for change, for positive change. And I want to share with us, our young people of the Sahel, our 4 axes for participation. Effective and meaningful participation. It's what Dauda was talking about. How do we achieve this? We talk about space, having a safe and inclusive opportunity to form and express views. We talk about voice. The expression of views must be facilitated freely and in a medium of your choice. We talk about influence, that the view must be acted upon appropriately. And finally, we talk about the audience, that the view must be listened to. So with this, I encourage you to think boldly about your recommendations. Be creative, be concrete, and think about where these recommendations should land. What change do you want to see in the world? I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. Over to you, Yupan.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you, Prerna. I want to hear you, to repeat what you said. Speak loud and clear, because if you are not concrete and precise in your suggestions, you would not be impactful. You have to call upon the general public, but leaders in particular, because these are the ones who are going to sign agreements. And it was, as was said earlier, young people should be stakeholders, valid and equal stakeholders in summits, in conferences, whenever talking about climate change. I know that all of you children, adolescents, young adults, you have worked hard over the last couple of weeks. You have come to a list of recommendations after that hard working. So what are those recommendations? Dolia in Cameroon, you have the floor.
I'm very well, Mr. Juan. How about you? Yes, I can hear you, Noelia. 16 years old, member of the Environment Club. What are your concerns? I have more recommendations than concerns. So I'll go straight to my recommendations, and I have a lot of them, but I'll try to make them short. The first one is to make sure that children are involved. Can you tell me, you, the young people in Sahel, how many of you know how to produce biogas, or how many of you have recycled plastic bottles to make something out of it? And I'll tell you that we are very few to know how to do that. And children in the Sahel region are very much affected by climate change. So I would suggest that we help children in the Sahel region to fight against climate change. Yes, they are affected, but they can fight against climate change. And I'll urge NGOs to come visit us in our schools to train us and give us the necessary tools to fight against it. And my second recommendation is with regards to sensitization. And I believe that we need to be more practical in sensitization. It is very rare to see people before us telling us about climate change and planting trees before us. We need to see more of such actions and less discussions, because we have spoke a lot, we have theorized a lot. Now we need to translate these into action. Now, we should promote NGOs in the Sahel region, because in the discussions I heard about many associations, NGOs, youth groups that have decided to take action without the consent of our authorities. And I encourage very much that. And I encourage the volunteers of the Oceans of Cameroon in my country, for instance. I also encourage the NGO GBE from Senegal, and the Young Volunteers for Environment in Cameroon. As I said, we have many NGOs, so I'll keep it short. I encourage you to continue the fight, and we, the youth in the Sahel region, should encourage the various NGOs in our country so we continue to move forward. Another point is about waste disposal. I'm saying it in English.
I don't know, we have to distinguish the way we dispose our various waste. In my country, for example, we do not distinguish between reusable waste, organic waste, and non-usable waste anymore. I think we should do that in order to those who recycle plastic bottles. If ever we can distinguish those different ways, it's going to facilitate their, how can I say, their entrepreneurship, their work, and all the rest. And it's also going to reduce pollution. I've already seen some little steps towards that, where I see very big tanks where they place it only to collect plastic bottles. So apart from that, my last point, please. Thank you for listening. This is my last point. Mon dernier point consiste à...
de m'avoir donné la parole dans ce sens. Now, my last point is to use plastic pavement materials. It's good to use cement or concrete, for instance, but we have so much plastic waste, and we need to make good use of that. And a good alternative would be to use plastic pavement in our construction work, and that way we would recycle plastic waste. And we should use more of biogas and stop using crude oil, for instance.
That of biogas, because if ever we use biogas, we also have bio fertilizers, and for regions like the north, the Adamawa, the bio fertilizers will be really useful for their soils. And lastly, we have to be more creative when it comes to the use of plastic bottles. There are many things to do with it, and so let's give the chance to those who know how to use them in order to teach them to use all of it. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you, et merci.
Thank you very much, Noelia. It was very passionating. It was very interesting to listen to you. Now, from Cameroon, we're going to Guinea. We have Awa with us. Good morning, Awa. While awaiting Awa's connection to settle. Awa, are you here? Yes, I'm here. I can hear you, and I am happy to hear you and see you. Awa, you are very much committed to the cause of environment. You are working in the correct organization. One birthday celebration, one tree planted. That's how we could translate the initiative. Now, how are you trying to convince your leaders? Thank you very much. I'm very happy to take part into this debate of the youth in the Sahel region. Now, I'll focus more on recommendations. As you said, we are young, we are full of energy and dynamic, and we require to be more involved in an active and effective manner in the decision making processes as far as climate is concerned. And we also urge the government to integrate environment education the same way other sciences are integrated in the curriculum, because we want children to start learning about the environment at an early stage. They need to understand how the environment is working and how they can preserve it to live in it tomorrow. We are in a country with a lot of mining potential, but there is heavy exploitation, and we urge the government to ask mining companies to carry out environmental studies before they start their operations and activities, but also have a mining police so that we make sure that they abide by the environment rules. By them, I mean the mining companies. We are young. We have many initiatives for climate change. Um, we, the youth, are very involved, and we are conscious of the hazards that climate change can cause. And we have come together as organizations, as associations, and we want the authorities to support us, financially speaking, so that we can develop and implement our projects. We also want the authorities to move towards or transition towards renewable energies that could start with household gases instead of using materials that are emitting greenhouse gases. We could use renewables, because we know that governments spend a lot on charcoal, so we should transition towards a mix, a transition um, into renewable energies. Among those recommendations, I have my colleague who also have some contributions to add to the discussion. But before I give him the floor, I would say that we are young people located almost everywhere in the continent. We should be champions or ambassadors and start the work in our families, in our entourage. And be change agents, so that the young people our age can use us as role models, but the older people can also through us see the danger that comes with climate change. And we also need leaders in the developed countries to support underdeveloped countries as far as adapting and mitigating the impact of climate change is concerned, because they are the biggest polluters when we are the ones being affected the most. So they should find ways and means to compensate that, to be realistic in how they support us, and to provide sufficient support so that we can mitigate the impacts of climate change. Thank you very much. I'll now give the floor to my colleague. Good morning. Can you introduce yourself? What is your name? Good morning. My name is Celiba Sidibe. I'm Executive Director of the NGO Action Citoyenne, which is a social uh, entity working on the environment. Very quickly, please, because you have other young people who want to take the floor. On recommendations, I'll talk about 2 points. First of all, supporting youth initiatives. There are many young people who have initiatives. Uh, But when they try to implement them, those initiatives usually have limited impacts and impacts in the short term. And very often they are not able to implement those activities all the way to the end. I can hear you. I'm hearing a voice. It could be an interpreter. There is confusion. Could we mute the microphone of the interpreter that we are hearing? So I was saying that we need to support the initiatives of the young people. They have many initiatives and they need support. And we also need to involve all actors, whether those are children, women, disabled people, in the devising of policies and plans to fight against climate change. I think that's the foundation. That's where it all should start. I'm sorry to cut you short, but we are a little behind time, and I want us to have the voices of many of the young people in the Sahel region. So we have to move to somebody else. Now over to Mali. Maimuna, good morning. Can Maimuna hear us? Is she ready? I believe she is. That might be a technical problem. Good morning, Maimuna. How are you? I'm very well, thank you. Maimuna, after having discussed with your colleagues, do you have a list of recommendations? We have two main recommendations. The first one would be to integrate climate change or the definition of climate change in the curriculum. So teaching about climate change in the curriculum, because it should start at an early stage. Children should know what climate change is. Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. It's cutting from time to time, but I can hear you. So we want children at an early stage to know everything about climate change, how they are being affected by climate change, and how things could change, and also come up with practical decisions. Uh, Meaning showing those children what they could do to mitigate climate change. For instance, planting a tree in their homes so that they know the positive impact they can have on the situation. And at the beginning of this school year, we had received a correspondence from the government that was talking about climate change. And it's a one-page brief that was explaining very basic things about climate change. And at the end, they wanted us to react to that. But the reaction of my classmates made me realize that children in Mali, most of them, are not very much concerned about climate change. They are not very much concerned about it. So that's the first recommendation. Now, the second would be, for instance, on international days such as today, Children International Day, we could have activities in communities where children would talk about climate change and think about actions that could be taken. For instance, have a day that they would organize a gathering to clean uh, their community and plant trees. So the discussions, debates are very good, but we should take action. So we should carry out activities. So on the international days that we have, we could choose one to have these activities that would be carried out alongside the topic. Yes, words are very good, but actions uh, speak louder. Thank you very much, Maimuna. We were in Mali, but now let's move to Mauritania. Tabar, good morning. Good morning, Juan. Good morning, Tabar. As Maimuna, Hawa, Noelia You in Mauritania found yourself uh, involved in a debate to discuss about recommendations, and you came up with a list. We are listening to you. Thank you very much for giving us, the youth, the opportunity um, to talk about climate change. It's our COP, the Sahel Region COP. And now, what I would say regarding all that has been discussed is about deforestation, scarcity of water, pollution, the oil cars that are sent to Africa that are polluting, and they're claiming that they are supporting Africa, but they are not conscious of the impacts that that so-called help is causing. So what I would suggest is to have green spaces where we would plant trees, have environmental um, uh, aspects into the curriculum, uh, but more of green spaces. I cannot hear you. You will hear me. Can you hear me? I had muted my microphone because there was some noise around here. I didn't want you to be disturbed, but go ahead, please. So we have discussed about scarcity of water in some communities, and this scarcity of water is creating climate refugees, and that has a negative impact on children because they are herders and they move when there is rainfall in an area, and when there is no more rainfall in an area they have to move to another place, and that has a negative impact on children education. And we live in a region where we do not have a lot of trees, so I'm very much pleading for planting more trees in urban areas as well as in school environments, but also reduce to the maximum pollution. Stop cutting trees. We do not have enough trees, so let us not cut the little trees that we have for charcoal in the households. Let us also stop dumping plastic waste in communities. Let us use that plastic waste into pavement materials, for instance, and let us also raise awareness around climate change because children and the youth in school environments do not know much about climate change, and we need to sensitize them on the negative impacts of climate change. It's very hot in Africa, especially in Mauritania. We do not have enough trees, and it's good to have a cooperation or collaboration with the Great Green Wall Agency so that we have trees planted in schools, so that we have more of those green spaces. This year, it has not rained in Mauritania, to be honest, and this shows that um, it's quite urgent to act upon it. And if this situation continues, this will have a negative impact on children in rural areas. And we know that those are very dry areas, so they need these actions. Thank you very much for these recommendations. It's very concrete. Now, what we were asking for was concrete actions. Now, before we talk to Jose in Chad, let us give the floor to Siga in Senegal, who is 18 years old. Siga, are you with us? We have lost Siga. We are live, and we hope that we'll be able to connect with Siga again. I am with Josue. Josue, are you with us? Josue. Josue in Chad is the chair of the children or the youth MPs in his country. Your microphone is muted. Your microphone is on mute. Can you unmute your microphone? So he will use a headset with a microphone. Josue, can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yes, very well, loud and clear. What are your recommendations in Chad after having debated around the issue? we have to recognize that climate change is our shared responsibility. So, my first recommendation goes to the youth. We should learn more about this issue because it's our future that is at stake. You should know your enemy before you get into this fight against it. So we should be more trained, equipped to fight against climate change. We should also get more into recycling activities um, because climate change is about hygiene. We, the youth, cannot be committed without the support of our governments. So it is mandatory that our governments support us, uh, especially as the youth. We always say that you should teach children the way forward so that they can continue on that path. So if we are involved at an early stage, we will continue to preserve the environment throughout our lives. It is important that the government also plant trees so that we have this sort of green belt and also encourage the use of renewables that do not have a negative impact on the environment. I'm here talking about wind and solar energy, for instance. It is also important for the UN agency and international um, organizations at large to support governments in fighting against climate change. Seeing this problem because we have in movies heroes trying to save the planet, but in reality, we do not have that. We should be those heroes working on saving our planet. It's a very good image. You are the heroes that are here to save the planet Earth. Thank you very much, Jose from Jamena, Chad. Now, let's move to Safia, still on the recommendations. Je ne parle pas français. Nous vous écoutons. Safia, donnez-nous, give us your recommendations. They will be translated. Go ahead, Safia. I don't know if you can hear the interpretation. Allez-y, Safia.
I was saying, in order for us to fight climate change, we actually need better climate policies and implementation of these policies. So from our respective government and people involved. And also we need inclusive stakeholder engagement where no man, no woman, no child, no youth is left out of the decision-making process. Awareness is also key, where a lot of people in my region do not even know what climate change is. Like if you go to like northern Nigeria and you start telling them about climate change, they're asking, okay, what is climate change? So we need to implement climate change education in our schools so that people are aware of the dangers of climate change. Climate change affects us in 3 ways in our region in terms of food, water, and energy. So for instance, now, due to like lack of power supply, we rely heavily on generators, which use fossil fuels. And in the process, fossil fuel actually affects our environment. So, and then solar power seems to be the better option for our region. However, it is not affordable. On an average, solar power costs $3,000. Not many people can afford that. So my organization currently, we're working on how we can how we can transform waste to energy, basically to make it affordable for everyone. And in terms of water, our best bet at the moment is rainwater harvesting. So during the period that we have rainwater for about 3 months, our best bet is to actually collect this water because our aquifers are drying up. So my father has been collecting water, he has been harvesting water for more than 10 years now, and he uses that water to actually water his crops because he's a farmer. So that seems to work for him. And also in terms of food, regenerative farming under sustainable agriculture is something we should explore for the Sahel region, because this will help us boost food production in a sustainable way. And then lastly, we need to get rid of plastic pollution. Plastic are affecting our environment. They are terrible and they're affecting our environment. We cannot afford, we don't have another planet to go to. We need to make sure we get rid of plastic pollution. We need to recycle, we need to reinvent it. We need to have better policies for plastic pollution. And then one thing that we sort of underestimate is planting of trees. We need trees. We need people to stop cutting down trees, stop cutting down our plants, because we need them in order to save our planet. Thank you for having me. Merci beaucoup. That's the only word I have. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Merci à vous.
Marie-Pierre Poirier, you are with us. You are the one who introduced the debate 2 hours and 40 minutes earlier. There are some children, some youngsters who would want to take the floor, but when you hear these recommendations and project proposals, what is your reaction? I am delighted, and I have reasons to be hopeful, because I have heard a very clear diagnosis. I have heard deep analysis and a lot of commitment. Climate justice has been claimed, a claim for commitments to be met by leaders with contributions at personal and group levels. There has been a connection beyond simple technology. We would want engagement to be pursued, and that this gives birth to a movement for the implementation of these solutions. I have taken a host of notes. I know already what UNICEF is going to discuss with its partners. The debate has been extremely rich, and I would want to congratulate all these young people. Who want change to occur. Thank you, Fabio Priscia. Good morning, Fabio Priscia. Can you hear me well? We hear you loud and clear. You have had to wake up fairly early. We had a speaker from Seoul who was about to have his dinner, and you are barely having breakfast. You are in charge of development, adolescent and children's participation and development. I would want first to thank young people. We always ask adults to give the floor to young people, but this time round it's children who gave me an opportunity to talk. Ever since Greta Thunberg started talking, she has become the advocate of climate issues, and she ended up being heard. So today, this dialogue and debate has been a source of inspiration that do demonstrate that the young people are agents of change. We will definitely not stop here. The recommendations you have tabled would go through the UNICEF traditional channels at local, regional, and international levels. We will help you get through to international fora. We will make sure that your voice be heard during the World Water Summit to be held in February next year in Dakar. That would be an opportunity for you, young activists, to be heard. You are a source of inspiration for our programs. Cecilia, Lars, all the UNICEF experts who took part in this debate are currently working on their 2022 work plan and will definitely be with you on this. Please keep on challenging us as you did today, as you do it in your countries, in your regions, and get connected with you reporters, with social media, so as to be heard. Juan Gomez has reminded you of something essential. You are over 230 million citizens in this region. Your region has the largest number of you reporters, 10 out of 15 million, which is enormous. Take advantage of that next to all youngsters who would want the voice of young people to be heard. Thank you for giving us hope for the future. We would want to be here for you and for your future. Thank you, Juan Gomez. Thank you, Fabio Fricia, for having been with us. We would want to thank all the young people, the artists, the speakers, the UNICEF teams who have made a wonderful job, who worked very hard for this, which was initially a very vague dream to come true. And we have had a very wonderful debate. Thank you, all of you. What I would want to suggest is to tell you, see you together next year. Put your videos on. We get up and dance on Angelique Kidjo's song Mother Nature, which is on her new album and which would be an anthem for the future. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Let us get up and dance.
Don't ever let them hurt you in any way. Oh, never let them steal and take the best of you. Keep building cities from the ground. We rise and weave the wave. Mother Nature has a way of warning us. A time bomb set on a lost countdown. Do you hear it? Will you stop it? Won't you listen? Amen, si amen, eva mi ale benefike, amen. Amen, si amen, que le gbandia erola nu silo. Each one of us needs one of us. We need each other. We need each other now. We need each other now. Each one of us needs one of us. We need each other. Don't ever let them hurt you in any way. Oh, never let them steal and take the best of you. Keep building cities from the ground. We rise and weave the wave. Mother Nature has a way of warning us. A time bomb set on a lost countdown. Will you find it? Will you hear it? Will you listen? Amen, si amen, eva mi ale benefike, amen. Amen, si amen, que le gbandia erola nu silo. Each one of us needs one of us. We need each other. We need each other now. We need each other now. Each one of us needs one of us. We need each other. Whoa. fire.